I want to welcome Brent Hieggelke, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for CrowdStreet. Thanks for joining me for the CMO Spotlight today.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. So, Brent, if you could just give us a little bit of background on yourself, like what was your kind of career path that led you to this role? And then also just tell us a little bit about CrowdStreet.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, let's start with CrowdStreet. So CrowdStreet is basically a new way to invest in real estate, commercial real estate, large real estate projects, right? Things that typically the average person wouldn't have access to. So multifamily developments with multiple, hundreds of units, medical office, industrial, e-commerce, warehousing, self-storage, senior living, student housing, all those kinds of things that, we kind of live, work, and play in outside of our homes. And we let people do it online. So think of it as, how you buy stocks now and manage your stock portfolio online. You can now do the same thing with commercial real estate. I joined the company a couple of years ago, and honestly, it was brand new to commercial real estate. I've been a big real estate fan. I actually started a company in the vacation rental area about a decade ago. I've bought and sold houses, multiple times, but never worked in commercial real estate. But what I am, I guess the reason I joined it and kind of my career path here is that I am sort of a serial entrepreneurial CMO. So I like to say I'm a glutton for chaos. I really enjoy coming in at the stage in a company where they're at a real intersection of where they want to go, and they haven't quite figured out either the right marketing team structure, the right marketing model, could be the positioning of the company needs to change. So it's at a real juncture where success, kind of lies in some of those key decisions. And I found that I really love getting in there at that stage and helping to figure out that next solution. And so anyway, that's where CrowdStreet was a couple of years ago. And the CEO brought me in. We actually had worked together a while ago at another company called Web Trends. And so we had good trust in each other, and the rest is history.
Nice. Web Trends got bought by Omniture? No. What is?
No, Web Trends was a competitor of Omniture. Funny story. I left Web Trends, went to a company out of London. 9 months later, we sold that company to Omniture. So I ended up, 9 months later, working for my arch rival. Spent some time at Omniture. Then Omniture got acquired by Adobe. So
right. Okay.
Part of Adobe.
I knew there was some connection there. Nice. So from a career perspective, what advice do you wish that you'd gotten much earlier in your career, or what advice would you give to a younger person that's, kind of earlier in their career?
Yeah. So presuming you're talking about people in the marketing, arena, what I always tell people is if you want to be a great marketer, go spend some time as a salesperson, because, my perspective is marketing and sales, it's just one funnel, and I don't look at the marketing work we do as, trying to win awards or be beautiful for beauty's sake, but be really effective at driving sales. And whether it's, direct sales, or whether it's, with like an enterprise sales force, because I've done both B2B and B2C, it's one funnel, and our job is to make, the money come in, right? Keep the company going. And so you can't do that as a marketer if you're going to be working with a sales team, unless you really understand what it's like to be a salesperson. So I did that, not intentionally. I just, out of school, I started a media company with my brother and his wife, and I ran the advertising sales team. So for a decade, I both sold personally, and I ran a sales team of about a dozen people as we built that company. And so when I became a marketer, which was kind of after I left that industry, I really was so empathetic to the sales person, the process, what they needed, what they faced day in and day out, that it made me a better marketer. And so that's the advice I always give. It's like either become a salesperson or spend a lot of time with the sales team and really, really understand what they're facing and what they need.
I love that. I spent many years earlier in my career at companies that were really focused on that alignment between marketing and sales. And so companies that really have a good relationship between marketing and sales that work together outperform those that don't significantly.
For sure. And it's funny because you always hear about the, the animosity between marketing and sales. And I just scratch my head and say, if your company has that animosity, then you better change the leaders of those two teams or get them to work together, because, it's like the quarterback and the wide receiver hating each other.
Right.
Okay, the quarterback's going to throw some bad passes, make the receiver look bad, or the receiver is just going to drop them once in a while, make the quarterback look bad, right? So it's like, you actually need both those teams to be incredibly effective.
It's a great analogy. So what would you say? I believe that everybody has a superpower. And so I'm curious what you would say your superpower is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awkward thing to say for yourself. So I'll tell you what people, I guess my reputation around Portland is the short word is people say, you're so creative. You're creative. And what I like to say to people is, actually, it's true. I do have a lot of ideas. Like I whether it's, at work or startup ideas or, whatever, I do have a lot of ideas, and some of them are pretty good. That's what I say. So I say, I know I generate a lot of ideas, but I throw out a lot of ideas because a lot of them are stupid and a lot of them are off. And so what I've developed over the years is sort of a self-reflective kind of personal devil's advocacy, so that when I come up with an idea, I kind of run it through. I mean, I will spend, obviously not, because sometimes you don't have the luxury of time, but if it's like, let's say a new business idea, I might spend years thinking about it, right? And why it wouldn't work, and, and really analyzing the market and that kind of thing. But, for what I've, I guess, honed now is this ability to come up with an idea and then apply sort of a strategic layer and say, okay, does this meet all the strategic criteria of what we're trying to do? Is the target audience going to, is this going to resonate with them with where we're going from the positioning of the company? So it's really that combination of creative and strategic intersection that I think I've honed over, many, many years of my career.
That's a good place to be, I think.
Well, it is, but it also means that, and I always tell people, like, organization, not my strength.
Right.
And what I mean by organization is just like, I'm not a project manager kind of person. I don't think in Asana. I don't think in project, management spreadsheets. I'm a little bit more, I'm a visual thinker. I'm a visual learner. I like to talk through things with people. I like to be a devil's advocate both ways. So, I've learned what works for me now, and I'm very sort of open about it. So I got to surround myself with people that complement that, that are very much detailed budget management people, that are detailed project managers that can, go ahead and build out an Asana task with all the little things that have to get done, and make sure we're keeping on track. So, that's the flip side of that. But honestly, I think that's part of becoming a great marketer is really learning what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then making sure you complement yourself, because you're not going to be great at everything. That's for sure.
Well, also, as we progress in our careers, we become less practitioners of whatever craft we have as a marketer, and more just managers of people, and recognizing the talent, nurturing the talent, enabling them to be able to do the actual stuff, the marketing stuff. So it's a good segue, though. So we find ourselves hopefully at the tail end of a pandemic where people are getting vaccinated, and most people are starting to think about getting back to some quote normalcy. So, but other than that, what's your biggest challenge as a marketer?
Well, I think it's probably not just a marketing thing, but I think just finding great people, and and what I mean by that is great people that really fit the job and can grow with the job, because it's there obviously you can hire people. We're doing it all over Zoom now, which is a challenge, because you get literally a flat screen view of everybody, and it's hard to build real chemistry. And when you're really interviewing somebody for a position, hopefully you're spending a lot of time with them. hopefully you're out having coffee or lunch and just getting to know them as people. Having that sort of, like I call it, soft skills time, where just, understanding them as an individual and do they fit culturally, and all those softer things that they're still incredibly important. And it's hard now to kind of nail that. The good news is, we're loosening kind of some of the geographic strains. So, like we've gone now officially kind of remote friendly. And so, now I've got the whole country to recruit from, which is good and bad. It's good in that, you can find like the most qualified person regardless of location. But it's, it can be tough because it might take longer to find that person. But, I think it all comes down to great talent, because, at the end of the day, the jobs we're doing are, fairly predictable. We marketing, although there's a ton of creativity and obviously no box to have to work into, but, we're basically doing the same kind of skills that most companies are looking for the same kind of skills. So we need to make sure that, we're finding people that are really the right fit for our company, our industry, stage of business we're at. We're kind of becoming less of a startup, more of a scale up right now. And so we need people that are ready to make that move with us. And it's a unique place.
That's great. So where do you find inspiration, or where do you, provide inspiration for your team?
What's funny, it's less now because you can't find these anymore. But I'll tell you, like throughout my career, when I was faced with like a creative deficit, kind of the writer's block equivalent for, I'm trying to create come up with a new campaign idea. I would walk over to a place called Rich's Tobacco Shop. Rich's Tobacco Shop had the best magazine selection in Portland, where we're based, but honestly, one of the best I've ever seen. And I would
better than Powell's.
Powell's, yeah, they did. No, Rich's was better. Powell's is hands down the best for books, in the world. But for magazines, and Powell's has, I haven't checked out Powell's magazine selection lately, but most magazine selections have withered, and a lot of places don't even hardly carry them. But Rich's had just international magazines, and magazines from Georgia, different states. They just carried such an eclectic section. And I would just sit and, I would just stand around and just browse and let my eye kind of grab me to whatever looked good. And I would find magazines there that I, didn't know anything about. And honestly, it was funny because I would just look through these magazines, and I wouldn't be stealing an idea from any specific page. But what I found is it just got my creative, my creative cells firing. And I would walk out of there, I swear, with 3 or 4 ideas. Again, nothing that I saw in a magazine, but it's just like I got into a different mental state. Yeah. And that is what allowed me to say, now I've got some ideas. And then from there, I'd usually take long walks and kind of like a crazy person, talk myself. Yeah, I'd literally be talking as I'm walking, like, okay, so here's what we're trying to do. Here's the audience. Here's the challenge. Here's, and I've talked to it. I'm sure I looked like like I said, like a crazy person, but that's what worked for me, is kind of getting that creative energy and then talking through it as I walked. I always joke that I have never come up with a great creative idea sitting at my desk, ever. It just never happens. And I'm sure that's very common for your listeners.
Yeah. I think as marketers, we find inspiration out in the world, both for you, magazines are a spark that maybe cause you to get in the right mindset to become more creative. But I think, there's the old marketing agency pitch idea that you want to consume the brief and really research all the research about the consumer and research about the company or whatever. And then you want to go bowling or go to a baseball game or go for a run or take a shower or do something, get away from it so that then that spark can happen.
Yeah. Subconscious is powerful. Kind of starts working on it.
So in terms of, I want to ask a couple of questions about leadership. Like, what are the most important values that either you demonstrate as a leader or that you demand in your team?
Yeah, so I think what I like to do is really make everybody feel like I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and get in the trenches right next to them anytime, any place. And so the ability to go, I think it's the range, as you grow as a marketing leader, your range hopefully increases, right? So you might start as, somebody in direct mail, which is obviously less relevant today, but today, let's say you're an SEO expert or SEM, or if you're a social media expert, and you add skills along the way and your range goes up. And I think, when you get to our level, what happens is, like you were saying, we're less practitioners of any one thing, but we understand the concepts and what we're trying to accomplish. And so, it's the ability to kind of get side by side with them and say like, hey, let's fire up that Google console and let's really look at what you're facing and have a hopefully a productive conversation about that. And then next, an hour later, you're having like a strategic conversation with the CEO about, next year's product line or something like that. And it's that range that I think really is what is unique to marketing leaders. And so, I think it's showing the team that you have somebody that, can help lead and see ahead of where we're going, but also, aren't afraid to roll up your sleeves and get down and, rewrite an email headline or, give them feedback on a social media campaign or a post or something that's very specific so that they can come to you. And I think what I tell my team is, you can come to me with any issue, any challenge, don't ever feel like it's too low level because I'd like to coach you through it. Right. And I'd like to explain my rationale, like why there might be a better approach or what the target customer might respond to that might be different than maybe what somebody had written. So anyway, long answer, but I think it's that range and the ability to go up and down that ladder really helps the team feel like you're in it with them.
Well, and you already answered my question about sort of how do you coach and mentor your team. So that was great. You answered that one too. So I want to shift a little bit. So as you know, setup is marketing matchmaker, and often that means we connect brands and marketing agencies together. So we really are focused on that client agency relationship. And so I'm just curious, if you work with agencies, like how do you work with agencies, or even how have you worked with them in the past?
Yeah, so it's funny. I kind of joke that I generally don't like agencies, but I do actually like them. What I don't like is, I would say, some of the bloating that happens with agencies.
Oh yeah.
When you get a team of 7 people working on something and you're like, who are these people? What are they all doing? I mean, we're not trying to do something, we're not filming a Super Bowl ad here where we're, producing something at a $5 million budget. And so I like really nimble, focused agencies where I'm working with the person doing the work as opposed to through an account team. That's my personal bias because I like to be very hands-on. I look at agencies as a direct extension of our team. So I don't look at it like it's a client agency relationship, but rather I'm scaling my team with variable cost. And I'm getting people that are able to do things that we don't have as a need full time. So I work with, I typically will work with a PR agency, outsourced. I'm actually in the midst of looking at hiring a video agency right now to create some video advertising, not Super Bowl ads, but a little bit more of on-demand kind of TV stuff. Yeah. But I don't need a full-time video agency, right? I need to come in and help us create our first 15 and 30-second spots. And so I'm looking for that. And I think, having just heard about what you guys do at Setup, it's really interesting and it's a real need because I am biased to try to work with people locally. So we're in Portland. Portland's a hotbed for lots of creative. There's lots of great agencies here. But now with this, this new remote world we're living in, I'm more likely to say, you know what, I don't care where this agency is. In fact, the lead agency that I'm working with on the video side is based in Brooklyn, New York. So, and I would have no qualms about hiring them today. I might have had qualms a year ago, year and a half ago, and felt differently about it because I really like to be in the room with the team, kind of brainstorming and coming up with that without having to get on an airplane. But I think we're so comfortable now that, and what that means is if I've got the whole country available to me, it's really hard to figure out how to find those best agencies. So I think what you're doing has a bright future because, of this kind of this new dynamic.
Yeah, well, it's to your point. It also can be like a full-time job, just finding finding the right agency for your needs. So that's one of the reasons why we exist, is that we bring some really qualified quality agencies, and we actually work with agencies all around the country. We work with an agency that's there in Portland, in fact. But to your point, people are less concerned about the geography of their agency or even partners, or now that we live in a more remote world. You answered part of this, but I'm curious, are there certain disciplines and functions that you would always want to outsource to maybe an agency or outside partner? And are there certain functions that you never want to outsource because they're core to who you are, as a company or as a marketing team?
Yeah, so I'll just go through things I have outsourced. Rebranding, right? So if you're going to go through a rebranding and you want to get some fresh thinking about that and fresh design kind of chops, that's something I've taken outside. PR is almost always something I like to bring in experts. Not for the strategy layer so much. I mean, although you get good PR people and they'll have great strategic ideas, but more that it's really impossible unless you hire a PR team, people, it's really impossible to kind of keep those relationships up to date with the media. Especially the pace of the media world. And, unfortunately the shrinking of the media world. And so who's still in the game? How do you build a relationship? So I find that's really effective to outsource. I've done some really, I would say, sophisticated integrated digital marketing campaigns that might require, a full microsite build and lots of different, video asset, or not video assets, but digital assets be creative. So I've hired, agencies that can do that full kind of design, web build, technical build, implementation, trafficking, that kind of thing. I found that that's effective. But, again, keep in mind, I generally work with startups and scale ups. So I'm working with, I'm working with smaller companies. So I'm not, I'm not in a position to go out and hire somebody with a, $1 million media budget very often.
Wieden and Kennedy's probably not going to be your agency.
They haven't been. I mean, I know people there, and I've, definitely spent time there, but I've never been able to go walk in and say, who wants my business?
Right. But I think you touched on a couple of things that are relevant. While you may not need 7 people working on a specific problem, I think one of the advantages of an agency in some ways is that they have discipline experts in some different areas, so that by hiring one agency, they already have an SEO expert on staff, and they already have an email marketing expert on staff, and they have somebody that can do video, and they have, a variety of different, where for you to hire a headcount for every one of those specific disciplines may be cost prohibitive, and you don't necessarily need an ongoing full-time video person, as an example, if you only need video certain times throughout the life cycle of your marketing activities.
Yeah, and I forgot, actually, probably our biggest agency that we're working with right now, they're really hands-on in all of our social media spending. So, we're running a lot of campaigns in Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We spend a lot with Google across multiple Google products. So, to have somebody on my staff that's in the consoles every day doing all of the testing and, sort of decisioning just doesn't make sense. And just to your point, we get a team of like 7 people working on our account versus having one person internal.
Right.
And what I also love about that, the outsourced agency model for that is you get the learnings across clients. So the agency we work with now, which is called Theorem, they also work with the Portland Trailblazers. And what's great about that is, which, isn't that relevant to commercial real estate,
right?
But actually we share a similar limited inventory issue, right? So we have, we're going to do 130 different commercial real estate projects on our platform this year, probably. And, a basketball team has X number of games, right? And only X number of home games. And obviously X is variable depending on whether we're in a pandemic or not. But, the point is we share.
Or if you make the playoffs, or if you make the playoffs or not.
Or you make the playoffs, exactly. Yeah. But they share that sort of like, how do you kind of market the scarcity and this expiring inventory? So funny enough, that wasn't one of our criteria, but as we got, built a relationship with this team, they realized like, hey, there's some shared learnings here. And so we get the benefit of that, right? We don't have to figure it all out on our own. We have their perspective, which is really fresh and helpful.
Well, I think that's generally the philosophy of, you hire an agency to either because you have a capacity issue where you just don't have enough arms and legs to do all the stuff you need to get done, or a capability issue where there's some discipline expertise that you may not have in-house and that you may look externally to because of their expertise. To your point, digital media planning and buying is something that you don't necessarily need to own in-house, and that you want to rely on somebody that lives and breathes it every single day.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So is there a particular, it could either be at CrowdStreet or even at a previous, life, is there a particular campaign or program that you ran, you're super proud of because of the amazing results, or maybe even it was a flop and it taught you something really valuable that you've used today?
I've worked on a lot of really fun campaigns. I would say the one that was pretty interesting is I was at a company, it's now called Airship, but it was Urban Airship at the time. And they were really the pioneers in push notifications and marketing messaging for mobile apps. So this was, kind of in the 2013 timeframe when mobile apps were just exploding. And, we all know about push notifications now. We see them every day on the screens of our phones. But at the time, it was very nascent. And so everybody was kind of rushing to send out notifications, and it was becoming kind of a tonnage game, right? Like more notifications means more engagement by users. And that's what we're going for. And I actually walked in, and about a month after I joined the company, I said, you know what, we're going to launch a campaign called Good Push. And we're going to basically say, hey, this notification has to be good, and good in the idea that the user says, oh, thank you for that. Like, it can't be a marketing message. It can't be annoying, because guess what? They can shut them off. And so we actually wrote a book. We called it The Pocket Guide to Good Push. We wrote this, 100-page little booklet. We actually designed it to look like a smartphone. And we started going to, South by Southwest and Mobile World Congress and all these big, and we started handing it out, and we started running, digital campaigns. We actually built a website, The Guide to Good Push. And we became really sort of like evangelists for how you use this new channel, which was brand new, in a way that delivered value to the consumer. And that really, really resonated with, especially at the higher level of marketers who were like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but like I said, in the moment, in that context, it was not obvious. So that was a campaign that really, I think, helped not only this company, but just even that nascent mobile industry take stock of, kind of like this great power. With great power comes great responsibility. Just because we can send notifications to people's phones doesn't mean we always should.
Right. I love that. Okay, so I've got a couple of fun questions to kind of wrap up our conversation. The first is there a quote or a movie or a book or a band or something that really inspires you?
Ooh, there's a lot of genres there. Let's see.
Yeah, you can pick any of them, whatever.
Yeah, I'll go with music. I've been a lifelong drummer, and occasionally have a cover band that plays around town, but I like to say we're on hiatus right now. We're all working on our solo careers.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm a massive Bruce Springsteen fan. Probably seen him live 10 times. And it's funny because people are pretty polarized. A lot of people that haven't really spent much time watching Bruce Springsteen or listening to him, don't really fully appreciate him. But if you do ever get the chance to go to a concert, you'll never see anybody in the world who enjoys what they do for a living more than Bruce Springsteen. I mean, that guy, you can tell, 4-hour concerts, which was, kind of his brand back, 10, 20 years ago. You can tell he doesn't want to leave the stage. He would outwear the audience, like every single night. And the depth of his lyric, he writes his own lyrics in his songs, and they're so intricate. And the passion that guy brings every day to what he does, honestly, it is an inspiration to me. And it's almost like whether you like his music or not isn't the point. You will never find anybody who's as fired up and passionate about what he does as Bruce Springsteen. So anyway, that's kind of one of my passionate things.
I love it. Well, you mentioned the drumming, but I'm wondering if there's something else that gives you, where you find joy outside of work. Is it drumming, or is it something else?
I moved to Portland from Chicago when my first kid was born, and she was, a month old. And I love Chicago. I still go back there. I got family there. I love big cities. I lived in New York City. I love the energy of a big city, but I just, the outdoors, being outside. So I snowboard. I like to boat. I like to hike. I like to bike. So just, for me, it's just getting outside. And I'm not a triathlete. I'm not a distance runner. I've never done a marathon. I don't do the Hood to Coast, which is the largest relay race. I'm a very amateur athlete across everything, but to me, it's just getting outside and having fun and being social.
Awesome. All right. So one last question. Is there a brand that you've never worked on that you really admire, and what do you admire most about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone will say like, "Oh, Apple, love Apple," and yeah, I do. And I've been on Apple products. Like my dad actually brought home the Apple IIe. He was a physics professor back in 1981, 1982 when I was a little kid, and so I was exposed to that. But one of the brands I guess I like it because I go there often still, is Starbucks. I'm a huge coffee fan, and I drink probably 5 or 6 cups a day. And I just feel good going to Starbucks. I like, obviously the values that Howard Schultz implemented there with giving part-time workers healthcare, and it's a brand that cares. You can tell they care. Is there better coffee out there? Yeah, you can go find a better cup of coffee, here and there. But if I'm, whether it's showing up in London or or Sydney, Australia, like there's just certain warmth I find. I'm, oh, good, there's a Starbucks. I know I can get that, that warmth, that cup of coffee. So they've just done, and Starbucks isn't a big advertiser, right? They have done very little advertising kind of over their history. So what they've built by the experience has been amazing. And I think, just kind of studying what they do and how they make you feel like you want to come back is really powerful.
I love it. All right. Well, the one last question is there something that I didn't ask that I should have asked as part of this conversation?
I mean, no, it was really well-rounded, honestly. I feel like I touched on all the things. I mean, hopefully I didn't bore the heck out of everybody.
No, it's great. So anyway, I want to thank you. This is Brent Hieggelke, is the CMO of CrowdStreet. So thanks so much for spending the time with me, Brent.
Yeah, completely enjoyed it, Joe. Thank you.